Houston police officer, second in this case for murder, and 5 others for engaging in organized criminal activity as a result of an investigation stemming from a 2019 raid on Harding Street that killed 2 people in their home. The 6 officers indicted Monday follow 5 others who previously been indicted, including Gerald Goins, also indicted for murder. Additionally, other officers have been charged as well. This investigation was led by the Harris County District Attorney's Office after the HPD investigation was handed off to us in May of 2019. Dennis Tuttle, Regina Nicholas, and their dog were shot to death in their home during a raid executed by Squad 15 of the Houston Police Department Narcotics Division. The investigation determined first that Goins lied to a judge to obtain a no-knock warrant to raid the Tuttle's home on Harding Street, and that officers had been involved on that squad in a long-term scheme to steal overtime money from the city of Houston. The officers indicted Monday include Felipe, that's today, Felipe Gallegos, indicted for murder in the death of Dennis Tuttle. The charge is a first-degree felony and carries a penalty of up to life. Other officers indicted on first-degree felony charges today, who also face maximum sentences of life, if convicted, are Oscar Pardo, engaging in organized criminal activity, to wit, aggregate theft by a public servant, and tampering with a governmental record, first-degree crimes. Sidell Lovings, engaging in organized criminal activity, to wit, aggregate theft by a public servant, as well as tampering with a governmental record. Both are first-degree crimes. Nadeem Ashraf, engaging in organized criminal activity, to wit, aggregated theft by a public servant and tampering with a governmental record. And previously charged, and again today, Clemente Reyna, engaging in organized criminal activity, to wit, aggregate theft by a public servant and tampering with a governmental record. Also, Thomas Wood, one of the supervisors, engaging in organized criminal activity, to wit, aggregate theft by public servant and tampering with a governmental record, first-degree felonies. And then the following officers are charged with second-degree felonies, and if convicted, they would face 2 to 20. Frank Medina, for engaging in organized criminal activity, to wit, aggregate theft by a public servant and tampering with a governmental record, second-degree crimes. Griff Maxwell, engaging in organized criminal activity by aggregate theft from by a public servant and tampering with a governmental record, second-degree crimes. And one officer charged last year, also indicted today, Gerald Goins' former partner, Haji Armstrong, engaging in organized criminal activity, to wit, aggregate theft by a public servant and tampering with a governmental record. The consequences of corruption are that 2 innocent, ordinary people were killed in their homes. 4 police officers were shot, one of them paralyzed, and now all of them will face Harris County jurors who will decide their fate. I want to thank the members of the Harris County District Attorney's Office Civil Rights Division, especially our leader and the division chief, Natasha Sinclair, for a 2-year investigation, nearly to the day, of what we consider a game changer in terms of how narcotics policing and prosecution may be handled in the future, not just here, but elsewhere. I can't speak for the police department, although I have spoken to the chief. But I can tell you that we're looking at the cases that we file, the way we file them, and how they're handled in a new light. And there'll be more to come. on cases that are pending, on past convictions, and on possible exonerations. Questions?
That botched raid on Harding Street that left a couple dead. Just yesterday, we learned 6 more Houston police officers involved in that raid have been indicted, bringing the total officers involved to 12. Here are their mugshots. Channel 2 investigator Mario Diaz has been on top of this story since the very beginning. And Mario, I know you talked to one of those officers. What did he have to say?
That officer, Lauren, is Felipe Gallegos. He is the one that was charged for murder yesterday. It was clear during a news conference today that he wanted to actually lay out all of the events from that deadly botched raid, but he is being told not to talk. However, he did speak with me when I asked him about the specific challenge of not getting his story out there.
It's been very challenging just because I haven't been awarded the opportunity to tell my side of the story.
Former HPD narcotics officer Felipe Gallegos speaks to Channel 2 Investigates a day after being indicted for the murder of Dennis Tuttle.
To be able to explain that I'm not the bad person that I'm being painted to be. And not only has it been challenging on me, but it's been challenging on my entire family and my kids.
Defending Gallegos, famed criminal defense attorney Rusty Hardin, who views his client's indictment as a political one by Harris County DA Kim Ogg.
When an issue gets hot publicly, she's going to find somebody to indict.
Gallegos, a narcotics officer with HPD, was one of 6 officers indicted Monday in the deadly botched raid on Harding Street. At City Hall, Mayor Sylvester Turner spoke to the now 12 officers who have been indicted.
I'm not in a position to be judge and jury. Okay? I don't know the particular details that took place.
Mayor Turner's comments come after HPD Chief Art Acevedo defended the officer indicted for murder.
Do you defend the actions of the officers like Chief Acevedo?
Well, it is important to allow the process to take that we proceed according to the process that is in place.
HPD's union came out this afternoon with stiff verbal jabs directed at Ogg.
There's plenty of things that the DA's office obviously gets wrong. This is one that she has overreached, overstepped, and our officers can be proven innocent at the end of the day. We look forward to our day in court. This is just another one of those political processes.
However, the bottom line for Mike Doyle, an attorney representing the estate of Regina Nicholas, also shot dead by HPD in the raid, is simple.
The grand jury is not buying the police department's story about the shooting.
And Doyle says that Nicholas's brother is set to come into town on Thursday and have a news conference here on Houston regarding these latest developments. One final note, we saw a lot of key figures throughout the city speak today on camera about this case. One interesting figure who was silent, Chief Art Acevedo. He was unavailable for any interviews. Live in downtown, Marty is KPRC, Channel 2 News.
The sooner we get to
Ooh. Get the fuck away from me.
I'm sorry?
I said, get the fuck away from me. Where's your mask, bitch?
Public sidewalk, sir.
Where's your mask, bitch? Huh?
I'm in the public, sir.
You're about a stupid motherfucker, ain't you?
Glad you think so.
Huh? You're about a stupid mother. Who are you? Huh? Besides a stupid motherfucker. Everybody knows me. I'm Whitebeard. Look it up. There.
I love you too.
Take a picture of that bitch. Who the fuck are you? Are you that assistant police union? You're the reason the good cops get killed. You know that, right? I can tell the look in your eyes. You're the reason good cops get killed. Are you even a cop? Oh, you got a badge on. What are you? Cocksucker number 1?
I just want to make sure and get a good picture of the gentleman that's out here harassing people.
Harassing people? Okay. Yeah, okay.
Have a good day.
Okay. You got it, bitch. You're a fucking idiot. Yeah, you laugh like a little girl. You laugh like a little girl. You laugh like a little girl. Blah, blah, blah.
We'll go ahead and get started with this press conference. Obviously, we're here today to address the charges that were brought down yesterday, actually the indictments that were handed down by the grand jury on our officers yesterday. We were really surprised when those came out. We did not expect that to go down that way with Felipe Gallegos being charged with murder. That is something that we just feel is inappropriate, and the officer went in that day to work to do his job. And in reality, he should be receiving an award of valor. Instead, today, he's posting a bond to keep his freedom. And that is something that every officer in this city and county should be aware of. I mean, what we're witnessing today is the death of proactive police work. I mean, seriously, when you go out, you work hard, you do your job, and you get charged with felony indictments. It's a sad day in Harris County. But I want to make no mistake about it. Some of the things that DA Ogg said yesterday is just not factually accurate. Number one is she made the comment that the Tuttles are innocent, ordinary people. But if the citizens of Harris County consider having narcotics in their home and shooting police officers average and normal, then we have bigger problems than I expected. That is not average and not normal. These officers went out there that day, and yes, Gerald Goings lied to get an affidavit. He's dealing with his own issues, but that had nothing to do with the rest of the officers on that scene that day that performed to the highest level possible to protect the citizens of Houston. They entered that residence not knowing what Gerald Goings had done, and they did their job to the best of their ability. One officer, Sadell Lovings, will never walk again because of the actions that were taken that day in that house. 4 of our officers were shot by Mr. Tuttle, and there is absolutely no rationale behind it. We are hoping that we get a quick day in court for our officers. The rest of the officers that were charged with a myriad of things that had nothing to do with the execution of the warrant. Understand that. In reality, only 3 people have been charged in an investigation that the DA's office spent a year and a half on, and all they come up with is irregularities in overtime slips. But as far as the 3 charged criminally with the raid itself, Gerald Goings, Bryant, and now Felipe Gallegos. Felipe Gallegos had nothing to do with the other 2. The other 2 had to do with the affidavit for the search warrant, and that is something that will be addressed by their attorneys, obviously in court. With regard to the officers that were charged with aggregate theft by a public servant, falsifying a government document, and engaging in organized crime. This is paperwork.
Meet Chris and Mark. They've both heard of Bitcoin and Ethereum. While Chris is using eToro.
This is nothing more than overtime slips that the DA's office is claiming, hey, they weren't where they said their overtime slip showed them to be. Well, guess what? That happens every day around the city. An investigator gets a call to go from home to go investigate a robbery, and he's going to interview the suspect. He may not go to the scene. He may go to 1200 Travis, talk to the witness, talk to the suspect. Never make that scene, but what's he going to carry on the overtime slip? He's going to carry the address that the incident took place. I say the same thing for our officers that, you know, protect the mayor. Their overtime slips are going to say City Hall, though they're going to be wherever the mayor is. Does that mean they're falsifying a government document? I don't think so. Officers around the city every day put down an address that they're going to do their overtime when they may not be there. They may be, well, in the era of pandemics, we can work from home. We have laptop computers. We have air cards. We have cell phones. A lot of our work can be done at home. Does that mean we're not working overtime? No, it doesn't. So I believe that this is a stretch by this DA. I expect that our attorneys, the attorneys that we hired for each of these individuals, will do a phenomenal job. And these cases will turn out just like those that the DA's office has prosecuted before when the winds say you should prosecute. We got the, can't remember the name of the company now that she prosecuted for the violations during Harvey. We've got the poker rooms. We've got the doctor yesterday. There's plenty of things that the DA's office obviously gets wrong. This is one that she has overreached, overstepped, and our officers can be proven innocent at the end of the day. We look forward to our day in court. This is just another one of those political processes that she likes to go through. It is nothing more than TV justice at its best for her to go out and charge our officers. I find it a little odd that our officers weren't allowed to testify in court yesterday, in the grand jury. Felipe was ready to testify yesterday in grand jury, and he was told to go home. Didn't need him because they had already made up their mind what they were going to do. And I find it a little suspicious that they hurry these up and pass them out right before the deadline so that a certain attorney can get over there and file his wrongful death suit. I'm pretty sure that'll happen today or tomorrow. So for right now, we're going to stand behind our officers. We're going to support our officers. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure that they're taken care of. They will be supported by this organization, and I believe by this department. I know the officers that are standing up here with me believe in these guys. They know they're out there doing the job to the best of their ability, and they will continue to do so if allowed to. And I see them coming back to work one day after all these cases are dismissed and being productive members of our organization. I will open up now for a few questions.
I appreciate you being here. I want to have sort of a quiet conversation with you about what's happened, what it represents potentially as a danger to our community and to the criminal justice system. The most immediate focus is what happened yesterday. The Harris County Grand Jury, at the request of the District Attorney's Office, indicted a hero. No question about it. They indicted a hero. Everyone that was out there on August the 28th of 2019 on Harding Street knows that this man right here, Felipe Gallegos, was a hero. He saved lives in a situation in which 4 different police officers were shot. 1, paralyzed for life, hospitalized for a year, diagnosed as a quadriplegic, though he is starting to get some use in his hands. That is an officer loving. This man did not even begin shooting until 2 different officers had already been shot by Mr. Tuttle. I have read and heard it described as the Tuttles were innocent. According to the internal police department investigation of the incident, it does appear, according to their allegations, if it turns out to be true, that these officers was wrongly there on a fabricated affidavit by the lead officer, Officer Goins. But when I'm standing here asking people to presume Officer Gallego innocent, I do not want to prejudge Officer Goins or anybody else's charges in this case. I'm here solely, and these people with me are here solely as the legal team. They're going to volunteer every minute possible and necessary to defend Officer Gallegos until this injustice is over. But I am not going to sit here and talk about the guilt or innocence of other people. That, based on the pending charges against others, is up for a judge and jury to decide. What I am here to talk about, though, is if we continue this anti-police approach, as we also legitimately pursue needed and appropriate judicial reform, then we are not protecting the public, we're endangering them. I want to make real clear that this is not about Black Lives Matter. This is not about people who have criticized police conduct legitimately in certain circumstances. And I can tell you that Officer Gallego and every decent police officer I know, which I vehemently insist is most of them, strongly object and disapprove of what happened to Mr. Floyd. This man, Officer Gallego, and his entire family here caught the virus, has had the virus, because he was there protecting people during the rightful, peaceful demonstrations here in Houston. So he is not here as a man that complains about people complaining about the police. He views his life and obligation is to protect and defend people, whether they are engaging in peaceful protest about issues they care and believe in, or whether their lives are in danger or their property is in danger. So I want to make sure, and I don't want anybody to misunderstand, this is not intended to be the other side of complaints about law enforcement in this country right now. It is to say that we have to understand that the solution to our problems is not to be anti-cop. It is to be anti-conduct in given situations that the facts determine was wrong. The last I counted, we have close to 5,000 police officers here. I could be wrong about the number. Long ago, longer than I would like to remember, I was a prosecutor and taught at the police academy. I remember telling my wives and others, there were 7 or 8 years I did it, if the public could only see on video police cadet classes as they're being taught to be police officers, as they are asking questions in a classroom, and as they are expressing concern about how they're supposed to do their job in the future. If we'd had videos of those officers, the public would feel much better, because they would discover what I deeply believe. Most police officers, like most prosecutors, quite frankly, like most public servants in the law enforcement world, enter it for the right reasons, with the right intentions. The fact that sometimes people go astray and do wrong things, either intentionally or accidentally, doesn't change the quality and nature of the people that have chosen this as a profession. So as we move forward in trying to right past wrongs and prevent future wrongs, we cannot throw the baby out with the bathwater. And this anti-cop attitude that is reflected, in all due respect, by our district attorney in Harris County, it's not only wrong morally, it's wrong legally, and it is tremendously self-destructive to the legitimate protection of the public in Harris County. But as I talk further, I want to make sure y'all understand, this is not supposed to be the other side of the issue raised by those protesting. This is simply saying, as we look for the right way to do things, we have to have a dialogue in this country, and we have to have a recognition in this country that the solution is not to be anti-cop. The solution is to require and expect of them what most of them expect of themselves: to protect the public, to preserve the peace, and to be fair and honest. And when they stray, the system should jump in to take care of it. But in the meantime, let's talk about the evil of indicting heroes to make a public point, to jump on the bandwagon of a public issue in a way that is intended to help politically an elected official. So let's look who this guy is. 12 years as a police officer. His father immigrated from Mexico at 17. Always wanted to be a police officer. Became a police officer and is now a homicide detective on the police force in Baytown. His son, Felipe Jr., always wanted to be a police officer. Can remember helping his father in things that a 3-, 4-, and 5-year-old could do from the beginning of his life. That's all he wanted to be. That's all he wants to be. That's all he hoped to be. He really wanted to be a SWAT officer. And the irony of what happened on the 28th of January was he was about to finally be one. He had been an auxiliary SWAT officer. What that means is that in addition to regular assignments, some officers who are qualified, who have been accepted, can also do part-time SWAT duty in addition to their regular duties. That would mean serving search warrants, serving arrest warrants. He had been doing that and hoped to be full-time. When I say the irony of what happened January 28th of this year, of 2019, is that was to be his last activity as a member of the narcotics division of the Houston Police Officer. The next week, he was to start as a full-time SWAT officer at HPD, which is what he had wanted since the time he had become a police officer. That was recognized by the other members of his team, so they told him to take the back of the stack. The stack, you may be able to imagine, is the way they approach strategically the execution of a search warrant. So ordinarily, Felipe had been at the front. That's what they usually did. He had more strategic training because of his extra SWAT training and others than other members of the regular narcotics division involved. But this time, everybody wanted to make that front position is the most dangerous. Those of us who were ever in the Army know that that person in the front, that's the most dangerous. And so they wanted to make sure that he was protected. So he took sort of the back. I've not mastered in my own mind that we would, whether there were 8 or 9 involved in this, those kind of things will come out later. We're late to the representation of Felipe and learning the facts, and I'll get to why in a moment. On this particular day, and I want this is very important for everybody to understand. Right now, to stand trial is Officer Goins and Officer Bryant with charges of murder, and it is based on felony murder, as I understand it. I haven't even seen their indictments, alleging that Officer Goins fabricated an affidavit as to previous deal. That was as to previous encounter, and that supposedly what he alleged in this affidavit and swore to under oath was false. That led to a search warrant at a location for which there had not been a buy. These are the allegations. And therefore, they're responsible for the deaths that occurred later. But it's important for everybody out there to know this man and the others on that unit had no idea of that, if that's in fact what happened. They thought they were executing a normal search warrant that was prepared by the division, the lead officer on this particular event. When they were briefed at the station house that what was going to happen, they were told that there was that the house where they was going, and that the man who was listed as the owner of the house had gun, maybe more, and that they had what was described as a vicious pit bull dog. To such a degree, it's an indication as to why they don't really believe that about the dog. Originally, the intent was to go into the building, and there would be, I've forgotten what we call it, pardon me? Flashbang. A flashbang. Flashbang. And when they found out about the dog, thank you, Doug. When they found out about the dog, they changed that. Because if there was going to be somebody, excuse me, an animal running toward them, and all of the smoke that it might create, and it might encumber people where they couldn't see either the dog coming if the dog was upset, or they couldn't see around if there was somebody else there. So they chose not to use it. But it only reflects what they believed originally, what these officers were told about the circumstances. Now, this is kind of touchy what I want to do, because I don't really want to get into a lot of facts that we do. That's going to be for the trial. But I do think it's only fair to try to give you an overview very quickly of what I think is uncontradicted evidence as to what happened. And that is, so when they arrive on the scene, and they get out of the van, and everybody goes up in a stack and starts moving toward the door. The lead officer goes in and breaches the door. The door opens. And as many of you have seen, it was the execution of a no-knock warrant. I think the evidence is going to be clear, not just from police, but I think we're going to see that people other than the police heard them yelling, "Police, search warrant." But they were dressed in a way, if you see the pictures later as this thing develops, there's no question that anybody would look at them and know they were a police officer, and it was in broad daylight, and there was even a car out there with police car with their lights on. As they go in, one officer goes in. Officer Gallegos is out toward the front porch. He hears one officer yell, "I'm hit." He hears some gunshots. He then hears some more gunshots. And then officers are starting to back out. When we talk about the totals being innocent, if the allegations against Officer Goins and Bryant are true, It appears they were innocent of drug activity at that scene, as alleged. But once they started shooting, or once Mr. Tuttle started shooting, he was not innocent. And there is no question, and nobody will contradict, that Mr. Tuttle started shooting at the officers. The officers start backing out, and as they back out, Officer Loving is shot, and he's shot through the neck, and he falls. And he can't move. Other officers back out, there's more shooting. Officer Gallegos is going to seize that Officer Loving is there and can't move. The other officers do. They start trying to go up to help him, to pull him out. And as they're trying to pull him out, Officer Goins is shot in the face to such a degree that half his face hangs down, or part of his face just hangs loose. This is what Officer Gallegos is seeing. There is still an officer inside that has been shot. And then he sees Mr. Tuttle stick his arms out and shoot outside. Another officer is shot in the face. And then ultimately, Officer Gallegos engages in fire with Mr. Tuttle. And Mr. Tuttle is killed. When Mr. Tuttle is killed, there were 4 shots found that had been shot and used in his gun, 2 live rounds remaining. A trial will sort out all of what the facts are. And that's good enough except for one thing I want you to remember. There are microphones of all of this, and everything I just described to you lasts 1 minute and 25 seconds. Officer Gallegos responded to the shooting of 4 fellow officers, which included the paralysis of one of them, 2 in the face, 1 in the shoulder. It all happened with 1 minute and 25 seconds. And ultimately, he was able to shoot and kill Mr. Tuttle. I don't know what the state's theory is as to how that could ever remotely be considered murder. And I will tell you why I don't know in a minute. But at the end of the day, that was the scene. The Houston police officers, obviously, there was a tremendous investigation in-house by HPD. And though the district attorneys like to take claim for what the allegations they've made, the fact is HPD is the one that in May of 19 forwarded their investigation and their conclusions that supported the indictments of Officer Goins and Officer Bryant. The district attorney's office got that file in May of 2019. Officer Goins and Officer Bryant were removed, and they are to stand trial. They were ultimately charged. What goes unsaid and not understood by me or our team, why in the world was it another 1.5 years before any type of accusation was made against Officer Gallego? Let me tell y'all something. A year ago, I started hearing rumors coming out of the DA's office by people who were disaffected that Kim Ogden wanted them and was pressuring them to charge more officers. I totally discounted that. I even heard that she was pushing for people to be charged out of the Harding Street incident, pushing her own prosecutors. I have no evidence of that, and I didn't believe it. And I told people no. But I heard that one of the people they might look at is the man who had ultimately shot the shots that killed Mr. Tuttle, excuse me. And I discounted it, but I knew Officer Gallego. And I had met him before. I knew him by reputation. I knew him what kind of officer and human being he was. And so, in the course of discounting it, I called him and said, hey, Flip, I'm hearing BS about somebody wants to make a case against you. I know it. I don't believe it. I don't think it's true. But if it ever happens, I'll be glad and proud to represent you. That was over 1 year ago. Things went along. We didn't hear anything. In December, the district attorney's office, now keep in mind, they've had this file for over 1 3/4 years by this time, contacted the police union and wanted to talk to some officers, interview a couple of officers. They interviewed Officer Loving and Officer Pardo. I wasn't part of anything then. I wasn't representing Officer Gallego. I've since found out. And then I was warning, it looks like they may be starting to circle the wagons again around Officer Gallego. I still discounted it. So there is no way a prosecutor is going to seek to indict a man who shoots someone in self-defense of himself and others in an incident that the person that dies shot 4 police officers. There's no way that's going to happen. Then on January the 4th of this year, Officer Gallego receives a target letter from the district attorney's office saying, we want to talk to you. You're a target. You are invited to testify to the grand jury if you want. You might want to consult an attorney. It is forwarded to me by the police union because I had told him if anything ever happens to him, I would represent him. So I write a quick letter to the DA's office and say, I want you to know I'm representing Officer Gallego. He would like to testify before the grand jury. Can we speak? And I get a note back saying, I'm sorry, we're not going to talk to you. It's not appropriate for us to talk to you while the grand jury is considering evidence. So the DA's office wouldn't talk to me. Now, I want you to meet and who is sworn to do everything we can to help Officer Gallego. To my right is Atisha Quinones, who in addition to having her own firm, is of counsel to our firm. We just concluded a trial with these same kind of issues from the DA's office. With her is Doug Murphy, also, like Letitia, 22-year criminal defense lawyer here in Houston. Doug is also of counsel to our firm, in addition to having his own private firm. Both of them have been in the Harris County Criminal District Courts for those whole 22 years. Next is Rachel, and Rachel Lewis has just joined us and is the newest attorney in our firm and has been actively involved in the firm. She is getting her maiden introduction to the Harris County criminal justice system, having joined us after clerking for several judges in December. John McVeigh starts out in New Hampshire. I don't know how he handles July. Comes down after some clerking experiences with a large firm. Has been with me now a couple of years, and he just came from the Federal Public Defender's Office. Naomi Howard clerked for the Court of Criminal Appeals here in Texas and joined me a little over 4 years ago and works on criminal defense cases with me. Somewhere around here is our investigator, Jim Yarbrough, was HPD for 20 years and has been with me for 19 and is a member of our firm. Stella Jarris is our legal assistant and has been doing it longer than either she and I want to admit for either one of us. I introduce you to these folks because we are uniformly convinced that not just that he's innocent, but this is a violation of how the criminal justice system ought to work. When you go to indict heroes, the hero better have done something wrong, and you better not be indicting him to make a social statement or picking what's hot for the moment. Stop and think about this. Ms. Ogg takes office in January 2017 with a promise that she would be aggressive in the environmental area and she'll be aggressive in the drug area, and minor drug offenses will be treated differently than the past. Sounds like a great progressive platform. I'd be hard-pressed to find anybody to be opposed to that. Arkema company, chemical companies. Harvey comes in August of 17, and they jump on it and indict the company. I would suggest to you, because there's a great big flame of a fire, and it looks like that it grabs tremendous media attention at the time, and they embark on a prosecution of this company and 3 individuals, regardless of whether they're guilty or not. During the course of the case, they present false information to a grand jury that stays uncorrected until we find out that it's wrong 2 years later. After a long trial that spans part of the virus, a judge rules that the case is so wrong and so insufficient, it's not even presented to a jury, and everybody is found not guilty. That's one thing. Then just most recently, we just said, what I'm going to suggest to you folks, and you local media are giving her a free ride on this, and you have now for 4 years, and I would suggest it's because she's talked about it in a progressive agenda, and it sounds like she wants to make the criminal justice system better and fairer. But you're ignoring a lot of incidents. One of the things you're ignoring, not ignoring now, you've watched it, but if you take example, you just had the doctor who, with the vaccination issue, and where the arrest was so blatantly wrong, the judge found no probable cause. The district attorney has announced she's still going to seek an indictment on it and go into a grand jury. And now you have another issue before the public and the media of police conduct. And she's indicted for murder, a man who saved lives and was only dealing with the apparent danger to himself and others. What do they have in common? It's a theory of prosecution that is not based on fact, it's not based on law, but it's based on publicity. And in each case, what she's chosen to do is pick an issue that has high public interest, whether it's violation of the environment, whether it's alleged wrongful conduct involving vaccines, or whether it's alleged misconduct by a police officer. That's why we and all of these attorneys in different situations and environments keep talking about this being a political prosecution. I respectfully suggest to all of you in the world at large, Ms. Ogg has embarked upon an approach to criminal justice that is based on pleasing the latest social issue that is hot, and not on what is the right thing to do in terms of guilt or innocence or protecting the public. Felipe is just the latest, most outrageous example of this I can imagine. And if you're really trying to find out what happened, please explain to me why he was not allowed to testify to the grand jury. Because here's what happened. We were told we could make him available to the grand jury if he wanted to testify. We could put a grand jury packet in prepared for him. I wrote back to him and said, since you want to talk to you, I'll tell you. He wants to testify. He'll testify. There won't be a packet. Fine. Be at the Harris County Courthouse tomorrow on the 25th at 8 o'clock a.m. We did that. One reason I mentioned the cross-section of people here, you look long and hard before you will find any defense attorney that wants to put his or her client into a grand jury where you know ahead of time the prosecutor wants an indictment. Thank you. There was a moment on Saturday where this whole group, knowing he was going in, were convinced that he was going to be indicted because she had a political intent to indict him. We had heard that from others. It matched up with what we observed. And uniformly, this group told him he should not testify to the grand jury. He was going to get indicted anyway, and he shouldn't do it. In one of the most signal moments of my career, we go around a room while he explains why he feels he must testify. That he didn't do anything wrong. He believed he had no choice. It's not anything he ever wanted to do. But he felt right would prevail, and that if people heard him and watched him and listened to him, they would understand what was going through his mind and what happened that day. He brought tears to every one of our eyes, because this is a man who was talking about the career he always wanted, and he was being told by us maybe it was about to be over. So, Saturday, Sunday, we visit with him and get ready to go to the grand jury. We arrive at the grand jury. Susan, his wife, Chris, I'm sorry, Cynthia, his wife, is an accountant with a company here. They have a 10 and a 2-year-old. She knows this is all this guy ever wanted to be. She knows also that he's decided he's going to go in and testify to a grand jury that is probably going to indict him. She's a very bright woman. This is not her world. She doesn't know whether this is going to work or not, but she knows that's the way he feels. His father, he raised him. You do right, you be moral, and you be good, and you be honest. And he tells his father, who's a police officer, all told for 27 years, I got to testify. His mother, Alma, and his sister that I just met 30 minutes ago, who wasn't in all these meetings. This is the family of a man that she accused yesterday of doing an execution. She's never met him. She's never talked to him. They never asked to. We get to the grand jury. We lawyers are firmly convinced that because he's telling the truth and he's so persuasive, it's so believable, that if the grand jury looks him in the eye and listens to him and watches his body language as he takes questions from a prosecutor that wants to indict him, and they discover that he doesn't get angry and scream or anything, he just matter-of-factly walks them through what happened. That if he does that, maybe they will overcome what the prosecutor wants. I get there, we've been asking the week before, hey, could you guys put this on? We just got hired. We don't know what the facts are. How do we advise a guy if we don't know anything? No, we can't. This grand jury's term is over. My understanding is tomorrow's their last day. This term is over. They've heard evidence. We're going forward. All right, well, he still wants to testify. We'll be there. So we all get there. We go downstairs. They give us the form that you get, that you write out and fill out. Felipe fills out a form that tells him all his rights, what can happen to him if he lies to the grand jury, and we wait. 15, 20 minutes after that, the prosecutor comes down and says, the grand jury has said they don't want to hear from him. They're declining to let him testify. So they don't want to hear from him at all? No. And their position will be to you, if you call them on it was not our decision. The grand jury told us that they wanted to think about it when they heard he was here as to whether they wanted to hear it. They made us leave the room, they say, and they brought us back in and said, we don't need to talk to him. Now, if you believe for 1 second a prosecutor who's been gearing up a grand jury for 3 months would not have been able to persuade a grand jury if they wanted to hear from the person that they apparently have already decided they're going to indict, and I've got some real estate in New York that I'll sell you. It is unconscionable to me and unimaginable to me that any responsible prosecuting authority would not want to hear and give a chance to speak a 12-year police officer who says he is not guilty and wants to explain. It's unconscionable to me that you would let that person come in. Because when they do, you could disbelieve them, you could watch them, you could listen to them. So why would you not want them to testify? And please don't give me that tired song, that was a grand jury decision. It wasn't ours. That is just bull. Regardless, this is a man who sits here today. He's been relieved of duty, and he will not be working as a police officer until these charges are resolved, one way or the other. To add insult to injury, they informed us yesterday that this officer, with the kind of roots in the community I described, that they were going to seek a $150,000 bond. Think about that. Is there anyone in this room doubting that this man who protests his innocence is not going to show up for court and trial? And you want a $150,000 bond on him? What in the world is that but seeking to punish? At this very time, a progressive DA wants better and seems to have given in to people talking about bond and bail for regular citizens and everything. They want $150,000 from him. This morning, the judge heard the state's probable cause and granted a $50,000 PR bond. And now we go on to the rest. The reason I wanted to wait until we had a press conference until today is I wanted to see what the district attorney was going to say yesterday, because she has press conferences that uses inflammatory language and everything every time one of these highly celebrated issues happen. Those of you who listen know that she called it an execution. If it's an execution, why would you want to at least judge that person you're accusing and see what they say?